The fastest way to increase a company's value right now? Replace people with AI agents. That might sound harsh, but the market seems to agree. In February, Jack Dorsey announced layoffs at Block that impacted thousands of people, nearly half of his entire team, and almost immediately the stock jumped 24%. Now, layoffs themselves aren't unusual. Companies have always reduced headcount when they think they can operate more efficiently. But that reaction tells you something important about how the market is thinking about AI right now. From the perspective of investors, AI is largely being viewed as a tool that can replace labor. I mean, if AI agents can do the work that previously required people, then the company can become more efficient and more profitable. If you own the stock, that's good news. But if you're the labor inside the system, the only good news may be a severance check that buys you a little time to figure out what's next. It's not unusual then that when people think about AI and the future of work, that's usually the risk they picture, losing your job. But there may be a greater risk that could affect far more people. I recently read a book called Reshuffle that examines how technology reshapes work within industries. And one example that stuck with me was from trucking. Traditionally, being a truck driver involved a pretty wide set of responsibilities. Drivers negotiated loads, they managed relationships with brokers, chose routes, and solved problems on the road. There was a lot of actual autonomy in the job. Then digital freight platforms like Uber Freight started to emerge. Instead of drivers negotiating loads, the platform set the price. Instead of drivers coordinating logistics, the platform handled dispatch. And now routing and optimization started getting handled by algorithms. The driver was still doing important work, but the role itself became narrower, a smaller set of execution tasks with less control. The job didn't disappear, it just lost the parts that made it both economically valuable and challenging work. And once you see that pattern in trucking, it's hard not to notice it showing up in other industries as well. Technology doesn't always eliminate jobs first. Often it does something more subtle. It pulls the judgment, the decision-making, and the leverage out of the role and moves them into the system. And when that happens, two things tend to follow. First, the economic power of the job declines, because if the valuable decisions are being made elsewhere, the person executing them becomes easier to replace. That means less money. Second, the work itself often becomes far less fulfilling. Daniel Pink wrote about this in his book Drive. He argued that three things that tend to motivate people are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. But when a job gets reduced to a set of standardized execution steps, all three start to erode. You lose autonomy because you're no longer making impactful decisions. You lose mastery because the work no longer requires the same level of skill or judgment. And you lose purpose because it becomes harder to see how your work meaningfully shapes the outcome. So the job still exists, but it pays less and gives people far less of what makes the work actually feel meaningful in the first place. Which raises a bigger question for anyone working inside a large organization today. If technology keeps pushing more decisions and leverage into systems, where does that leave the people working inside them? Some people will adapt by moving towards the parts of their industry where judgment, creativity, and leadership are going to still matter. But others may decide they'd rather own something themselves instead of relying entirely on a role inside someone else's system. Neither path is inherently right or wrong. But standing still and assuming your role will still stay the same may actually be the riskiest option of all. Because the incentives in the system are pretty clear. The owners are being rewarded for AI-driven efficiency. So the real question becomes where you want to sit in that equation. On the side that owns the system, or on the side that the system is trying to reduce or replace in service of higher profits and stock values. As usual, if you got value from this message, please like it, send it to a friend that you think it might benefit, and have an amazing day. Don't quit your daydream. Cheers.